Epic length, personal cost, and shifting loyalties. Let's ease into the second part of our journey. Not into a single event, or one decisive battle, but into a war that never seemed to end. The 100 Years' War it didn't last precisely 100 years. It stretched from 1337 to 1453, 116 years in all. That's longer than many people lived. And for the average person, it wasn't a single conflict. It was waves of war rising, falling, drifting into periods of uneasy peace, only to return again. France and England were the main players, but inside their kingdoms, loyalties were more fragile than flags. To understand why this war began, we have to step gently into royal succession, a slow and winding road of claims, inheritance, and politics. In 1328, the French king, Charles IV, died without a male heir. Edward III of England, his nephew, believed he had a claim to the French throne through his mother, but the French rejected inheritance through the female line. Instead, they crowned Philip VI, a cousin from the House of Alba. Edward, after some hesitation, eventually contested this decision. Not all at once, not loudly, but gradually, through trade disputes, land conflicts, and eventually through war. And so it began, slowly, deliberately. The 100 Years' War wasn't one continuous battle, but rather a series of campaigns, truces, skirmishes, and sieges. Entire generations came and went, some never knowing a time without the war's shadow. Imagine living your entire life with the sense that, somewhere, there were soldiers in the distance, that borders might shift, that crops might be burned or taken, that taxes were always just a little higher because of the war. Imagine being a child in 1360, then a parent in 1390, then a grandparent in 1420, and still, the conflict goes on. But despite its length, the war had moments of motion, points where everything seemed to tilt. There was the Battle of 1346, where English archers, using longbows, devastated the French cavalry. It marked the rise of common soldiers in the slow decline of the mounted knight. There was the Siege of Calais, a long and punishing standoff that turned the town into a symbol of endurance and loss. Then, in the early 15th century, the war took an unexpected turn, with the rise of Joan of Arc, a peasant girl who claimed divine guidance and helped reignite French spirit at a time when hope had nearly withered. But Joan's story? We'll return to stories like hers another time. Here, let's dwell on what this war meant for ordinary lives. For peasants in Normandy, the war meant that the land you plowed today might be burned tomorrow. For merchants in Bordeaux, it meant that the ships you sent might be taxed twice or seized outright. For families in England, it meant sons who didn't come home, and kings who demanded coin for causes you didn't choose. And for soldiers, though, ones who marched, fought, and bled, it meant seeing the same places again and again. Burned, rebuilt, and burned once more. The war changed. It evolved. Gunpowder emerged. Armies became more professional. Chivalry began to rust. But the slowness of it, the weight of years, by the time it ended, many of the people who had begun it were long gone.